Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Alright, on this video I'm replacing a lot of the components in the front suspension, namely the thrust arm, the front control arm, and ball joints. Yeah. And the wheel bearings, you'll see everything I got in the box, but basically why I did all of this is I was having real bad brake steer. Basically what that is, I would hit the brake and the car would pull to the right, sometimes pretty bad depending on how fast I was going. So that's not a safe situation. That's not something you want. Usually when that starts happening, that means that your thrust arm, the bearing inside of it's pretty much shot. So decided to go ahead and upgrade it instead of just replacing it with an OE unit. And part of the video I was going to show how to change out your rear brakes. But if you saw my short video from before, ECS Tuning pretty much screwed me over with that. I ordered a kit that was supposed to have 2 cross-drilled rotors. I get a cross-drilled rotor and a blank rotor, and then I send the blank rotor back, and first they tell me they have it in stock, they're going to send it next day, and then I check the next day, they don't have it in stock, and I'm going to have to wait a week. Completely unacceptable. So I sent the whole thing back and just went ahead and got some blanks from Advance Auto. Only cost me a few extra bucks, but so what I needed to get the car back running. Really mad because I missed the last track day of the year, so I pretty much have to wait until next year before I can get an official time on my car. But maybe I'll invest in a drag in the future. So let's get into this video. Hopefully somebody will learn something from it, help you guys out, and you can watch the progression of the Ghost. So first, let's go over some of the bits I am installing. Got here in the box. It's from Turner Motorsports. This is a thrust arm. Comes with a monoball insert. You can either buy it like this, or you can buy the insert and get it pressed in yourself. I'm sure that's fun. I think there's one other company that makes something like this, but there's like almost $700, $600. But same basic idea. And then got the control arm here. This is just a regular OEM. As far as I know, there's not anything aftermarket you can get as far as these. These shims go inside there. I'm guessing I'll figure it out when I get to bolting things up. In this box is the ball joint, so I got to get that pressed out of the hub. That's going to be fun. And in my other box, while I'm in there doing everything else, I'm going to swap out my wheel bearings. Those will have to be pressed out also. Try and take care of that tomorrow. And in the last box, what we got here is brake rotors and pads. As you saw, the brake light was on in Pro Tools, so went ahead, got rotors and pads, and the brake wear sensor. Went ahead and replaced that. I don't know the condition of mine, but I think this was only like $9, so I went ahead and threw it in the cart and bought it. As you can see, if I try and move the wheel, that shouldn't be doing that at all. So it definitely needs to get swapped out. That's where all of my brake steer is coming from. To show you the difference between the two, this is not what your thrust arm is supposed to be able to do at all. Not even a little bit. and here's a replacement. See the difference? All right, so first thing you want to do is take this rattle clip off. Just stick the screwdriver in there until it pops back. And you can pop straight out, it'll pop out. And then next thing you want to do is get you a C-clamp, a nice big one like this. You're going to take a C-clamp, stick it on the inside here, make sure it's on the brake pad, and tighten it down until you compress the piston spring, the caliper piston, and then that'll make it easier for you to pull it off. Same in the back. You got this where the bolts for the caliper are. You'll have a little caps on top to cover up the bolt. Just pop those out. Got one here, and then the other one is at the top right about here. The bolt up here is a 17 mil 7 mil Allen, and just back it out. It might not come all the way out, but you should be able to tell when it's not screwed in anymore. Then you can do the one on top. Once you get the caliper off, I would suggest not leaving it hanging on your brake hoses. What I did is I took a couple of zip ties and zip tied it to the coil. Alright, next move should be to take the caliper bracket off. 16 mil, got a bolt here, got a bolt here. Once you get that off, you want to take this guy off right here. It's a 6 millimeter Allen head. Now you should be ready to take the rotor off. Might need a hammer, just tap it. Give it a nice tug while you're tapping. Make sure you don't hit the actual blank. Ta-da! Now comes the fun part. That bastard right there is your lower ball joint. Easy part is taking that bolt off. I believe that's the 22 millimeter or a 15/16 if you got standard tools. And then you have to get the thrust arm to come down off of the ball joint, and that's the headache part. Now there's a ball joint separator tool. That's the proper way to do it if you plan on continuing to use your ball joint that's already in there. But since I'm replacing mine, I don't really care. So what we're using to get that off is the pickle fork.
Pickle Rick!
So how you use the pickle fork is you wedge it in between the ball joint, the hub, and your thrust arm. Take a BFH and you whack with all your life.
2 hours later.
Sometimes undoing the thrust arm from its mounting point can help. So get you an 18 millimeter socket and an 18 millimeter wrench and get that bad boy off. And if you whack hard enough and long enough, the thrust arm will come off. Now you can see with the rest of the ball joint, there are 2 bolts that are holding it in. Even after you take those bolts, you're not going to be able to get that ball joint out. You're pretty much going to have to get something like a what do you call those things? Pneumatic hammer, or somebody with a press or something like that. That's pretty much the only way you're gonna get that out of there. I think there's thing you want to undo is the steering rack, outer tie rod. Get that off the knuckle. Undo the bolt till you get here, and you should be able to tap on where it's seated, and should pop out. You might need to actually get a proper tool so you don't damage the tie rod. Reason you got to get that off of there because you have to move the inner tie rod up out the way so that you can get easier access to the control arm bolt. As you can see, that is the control arm bolt. Same deal with the thrust arm bolt. 18 mil on both sides, and just back it out of there and it should fall right out. Now you want to get this ABS sensor out of here. It is a 5mm Allen head. Just back it out, but it won't come out. You're gonna have to like wedge a screwdriver down in there and gently work it out. Make sure you don't break it. If you do break it, you'll end up having to buy a new one, of course. So what you want to do, get your screwdriver, stick it down in there, lightly tap it until it goes in. Just work it around. Don't try and force it. Just get a little space. Work it in, move it down, tap it in. Try twisting the screwdriver. Don't try and just force it out. If you can get it in there and move it around enough, you can twist it, and that should help you get it safely out without tearing it up. All right, fun part number 2 is getting your axle backed out. Now, this is the tool that you'll need that you can get. You should be able to pick it up from AutoZone or whatnot and rent it. It's the master hub puller set, and that's the part number right there. So like I said, make sure you didn't send your rotor away too far. You got to take your rotor and put it back on the hub. Didn't break the axle off before you got to this point. What you'll have to do is put your caliper bracket back on. You'll have this piece, it'll be over the rotor, and you take like an extension, like you can use an extension like this, or a thick screwdriver, stick it down inside the vanes, and as you're turning, it'll catch on the rotor bracket, and that'll keep it from moving, and that should allow you to break that axle nut off. That's how I get mine off. So hopefully you took care of that before you started, but if you didn't, that's the best way to get it off of there. Once you're sure you have the axle nut off, you want to take this part of the tool, bolt it on there with some of your lug nuts, your lugs. Then you have this piece here that screws in the middle. Has a 19mm head. Screw it in until you feel it make contact with the axle. Just screw it in, tighten it in until the axle comes all the way out. And as you push it in, you'll see the axle itself will start to back out. Right, it should look like this. As you can see, the axle is backed all the way out. Remove the tool and then move the hub away from the axle. Last part to getting the hub off is the shock bolt. Same deal with the control arm and the thrust arm, 18 on one side, 18 on both sides. The thing is, this bracket here is connected, so you want to make sure that you get this bracket off before you drop the control arm all the way off. So back it out, it'll Might start to fall, it might not. But make sure you get this bracket off, and then that should be the last part. Once you get it off of the shock, it should look like this. Next part will be this bolt right here. That is a 24 millimeter. It's almost impossible to get to when it's still on the car, and it's gonna take some work to get it off when it's off the car. So go over that. You have to find a way to hold the spindle and the assembly in place and get that bolt off, and then you'll have to go back with the pickle fork, whack the shit out of it to get that control arm to come out. When you get done, your end product should look something like this. Last thing you want to do with the hub is take those two ball joint bolts off, then get it to a machine shop. If you have one nearby, have them press that bearing out, have them press this ball joint out, and then you can put the new units in.
GK, hold up, talk about PMCPH.